Hi, I'm Danny Glover, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce you to a wonderful practice which has been benefiting humanity for 1,000 years. It is known as Qigong and is presented in this program by a leader in the global healing community, Dr. Bill Akpinar. I am proud to have benefited personally from Dr. Bill's health wisdom and guidance, and would like you to benefit as well from the teachings of a great doctor, humanitarian, and friend, Dr. Bill Akpinar. Please enjoy and let him share with you the wonderment and simplistic beauty and the immeasurable benefits of Qigong. By practicing Qigong, you have the potential to achieve a life that is healthier, happier, and fulfilling. You will feel balanced and grounded, and quite possibly even live longer. Historically, people who engage in the practice of unifying the mind, body, and spirit have enjoyed the benefits of a more satisfying existence. Through this program, you will experience and learn how to harness your own energy to improve your health and wellness. Dr. Bill Akpinar presents moving meditation, Shaolin Yoga Qigong.
Hi, I'm Goron Kelly, and I'm with my friend Reverend Dr. Bill Akpinar, MD, DDS, PhD. Bill, that was some introduction by Danny Glover.
Yes, he does love the practice. I've been practicing with him and teaching him. We've been sharing a lot of great times together.
And we'll be discussing mind, body, and spirit. And speaking of spirit, ladies and gentlemen, that violin music you heard was Dr. Bill performing Amazing Grace, written by John Newton, 1796, a sort of spiritually bankrupt human being. He made his money as a slave trader. Where, Bill?
He was transporting slaves, I believe, from Sierra Leone to the southern parts, the Virginias, the Carolinas.
And he was out in a storm.
Yes, and the storm threatened to sink his boat, destroy him, his cargo, and he prayed. We find spirituality through either inspiration or desperation. He was pretty desperate, and he was rescued.
And part of the show tonight, Mind, Body, Spirit, tell us about spirituality, Bill.
Well, like he found it, he went back and he wrote some of the best hymns ever, and one of them was Amazing Grace. So, that is really a prime example of spirituality. What is spirituality? Well, spirituality is really the study of the spirit, okay? So it's about faith, hope, and love. If we really break it down, faith is something that we all need. We could believe in what the Native Americans called the grandfathers. We could believe in God, in Allah, in Shiva, in Yahweh, whatever we call it. We need faith. We need to have faith in something, nature, the Taoists, Buddha. So it's an inherent need that we all have. Now, hope, of course, is something that keeps us alive. Without hope, we're destitute. We're, like you said, morally, spiritually bankrupt and done. And love, as we all know, is the prime emotion that every child, man, adult, older person needs from birth to death.
And spirituality, how does that fit into the healing equation?
Now, this is an important point, Gordon, because it seems to have been surgically extracted from the healing model because we've gone so high-tech. And if you look at spirituality, if you really break it down in the healing equation, it comes down to compassion. People who have spirituality and people who embody it, and doctors who help patients with, helping them restore their spirituality, gain it, imparting spirituality on them, patients do better. The relationship is enhanced. People tend to get through situations of pain, of suffering, of impending death, of bereavement, much easier when they have a spiritual foundation. Without it, it becomes just a highly technical procedure, and it's very cold and it's very sterile.
And this procedure, this healing of a paradigm of, we went from the physical, the material, from Isaac Newton to Albert Einstein, and we have a
Yes.
little quote of Albert Einstein of how he went to the quantum physics and the frequencies
Yeah.
of Albert. So there's a change in paradigm from something was controlled and everything. And I have this quote: everyone who is seriously involved in the pursuit of science becomes convinced that a spirit is manifest in the laws of the universe, a spirit vastly superior to that of man, and one in the face of which we, with our modest powers, must feel humble. And that was the great Albert Einstein, who had the idea of quantum physics and frequencies, Bill.
Yes, yes. It's almost ironic that a genius, such a high-grade genius, believed so deeply in spirituality and the spirit, because when you look at science, science is the practice of observing, replicating, duplicating, observing again, and you know, setting up these laws and paradigms. And spirituality is something traditionally that's been seen as an unmeasurable entity. You know, you can't. It's hard to measure spirit, but when you bring spirit and science together, spiritual science, now you're applying the laws of science to spirituality, which is really what the new paradigm is becoming.
And it's almost multi-dimensional, the energy of the body. Is there a frequency there, Bill?
Yeah, this is a very important point, Gordon, because if you look at the old paradigm, the Newtonian paradigm, it's matter-based. You know, matter is particles. Quantum or Einsteinian physics is really, it dwells, or it focuses on waves, light, which we're going to cover later on in the other segment of the show. But the body is composed of layers of frequencies. We call this the multi-dimensional anatomy, or the multi-dimensional composition of the layers of the human body. And you know, the first layer, and we have instruments, of course, today that can measure it. The Russians were very famous in developing these. The first layer, you know, of course, the most dense part of the matter or the materia that we call the human body is the actual physical body, the muscles, the bones. Now, around that is a template, a vibrational frequency template we call the etheric body. As we get further away, the vibrational frequencies become higher and higher. So then you have the astral, the mental, and eventually the causal, which is the divine, or the higher self, we call it.
And Bill, how do they interface with the body and healing?
This is something that the monks knew, Gordon. The monks who talked about chi, who talked about prana, the rishis, the sages. This multidimensional anatomy is not just a covering. It's not just, oh, the body has an aura and it's, you know, people can see it. This template actually dictates the division of the cells from the time of fertilization, and it carries energies possibly from previous existences or generational energies, and it will determine how the cells will divide.
And Bill, are these, and at what point are these vibrationals, are they visible?
Yes. Well,
and the physical body and this template, you said it earlier, at fertilization?
yeah.
At conception?
The Chinese sages have determined that it takes place almost immediately at conception, where the poles of the egg become the north and south pole, divides into 2 and 4 and 8. And there's a polarization, and there's an energetic aura or a template or a skeleton surrounding. That's the real skeleton that tells the cells how to divide. Not the cells creating the aura, but the actual template of energy determining the division of the cells.
In our physical development?
Yes, absolutely. So to answer your question, can it be seen by normal, average people? Probably not. By certain people who are gifted, seers, psychics, they could see it with frequency measuring machinery, high-tech electronic devices that use scalar technology, and of course Einstein knew about this, Tesla knew about this. It can be measured, and the different layers can be seen.
And what about an energy field. Again, is there a diagram or something about an energy field? I know that we have, we just had a slide up there on the energy fields.
Yes. If you look at what we call Kirlian photography, and this was developed by a Russian scientist, Semyon Kirlian, this is a very good depiction of that. If you look at the picture on the left, and of course I keep referring to Qigong because it's my practice. Some people love yoga, practice that as well. It's a Chinese version of it. Some do Reiki, some do meditation, but Qigong really seems to have it all, for me anyway. If you look at before Qigong, after Qigong, you could substitute other practices. The body's flipped around, so the part on the left side is my left, and the other part is my right. So now if you look at my knee, you could see the break in aura. That's from the injury, skiing injury, martial arts injury. If you look at my left hip, this is from kicking. Most people who are involved in kickboxing, kicking, they have hip injuries because it's the third law of Newton. For every force, there's a countering force. So that took a hit. If you look at my left jaw, took a lot of battering over there.
Yeah,
you see the energetics are off, and my left shoulder from being popped out in so many different, from judo, jiu-jitsu. Now, after 5 minutes of Qigong, this was done in Russia after jet lag, and we were traveling, and I was really tired. 5 minutes of Qigong, and the scientists were kind of like blown away. They said, this is amazing. You see the energy field, it looks two-dimensional, but this interfacing energy field is actually an aura around the body, and it penetrates. This is in the body. This is around inside the organs, inside the tissues. You see an even aura there, which shows that the energy is balanced and it's uniform. Now, if we look at the physical manifestations in blood, for example, that is an amazing depiction of what goes on. If you look at the blood cells on the left, we call this rouleau. It's stacking. The cells are stacked like, chips at a casino, because the electromagnetic forces, this is before Qigong and after Qigong, so this is fascinating. They're stuck together, they're gummy. Now, after Qigong, the electromagnetic forces, what we call the van der Waal forces, have changed, and the cells, they're moving around independently. You see the field behind it. It's clear. A lot of the gunk is gone, and they have a very shiny, net, perfectly round appearance. So this is a drop of blood, but this is taking place all over the body, and this is really a manifestation of what goes on energetically, spiritually in the body. This is what you're seeing in that picture, and this is the depiction of the science of it, let's say.
There's almost a consciousness of a constructive or a destructive energy.
Yes.
And it's actually measurable.
Yes, it is. It is. It is. And if we were to measure it, if we really break this down, I mean, there are energy areas, regions in the body that we call chakras and acupoints and acupuncture meridians. We're going to get into that as well. It's readily available in those areas.
And you're measuring it at many levels, so there's almost an awareness from these diagrams that we were saying there's a consciousness and awareness. And how does the brain and the nervous system interact with the mind, body, and spirit, Bill? This is an important point, Gordon, because we talk about the mind. The mind has been traditionally believed to be housed in the brain. It's the head, and of course there's a gut brain. We know that. That's a whole separate subject for analysis, because that's an amazing connection between the gut and the brain. So inside the brain and around the body, we have nerve tissue. The nerve tissue, or the nervous system, is really a conduit. It's like a step-down transformer where environmental signals are taken, and these signals are transducted. They come into the body, and it's like the relay station. Now, once they get into the body, an interesting phenomenon takes place. These signals get imprinted in, manifest in, and start influencing the neurotransmitters and the hormones and all the different biochemical components of the body.
And these actually signal the DNA to do certain things.
And they're actually measurable?
Yes.
They're measurable?
Yes.
They're visible. And how do these, are there the frequencies, and how do they play into our genetics?
Oh, this is such an amazing
And how do they fit into our wellness and
we're going to
genetics?
do a complete program on genetics and epigenetics, because this is so fascinating that it really merits a closer look. Now, I'll give you a little cue into what we're going to discuss in that program, but our genetics, everybody believes that you're born with a set of genes, and that's it. You can't. And I asked you on one of the shows if you've changed your genes, okay?
And I asked you if you had good genes or bad genes.
That's right, man.
Now looking at me like,
now this is like, what the heck is he talking about? Now, did you change your genes? And you said, well, hold on a second. After that, yeah, I did change my genes. And how did you change your genes? Well, you paid attention. You did some Qigong, which we did in the park.
Breathing.
We did some deep breathing.
Down at Memorial Field.
That's right, absolutely. So we did some of that. You paid attention to your nutrition, because we're going to talk about the different types of Qi, which is very important. You changed your mindset, okay? And ultimately, the signals went down to the genetic components, the epigenome, if you will, and it changed your chemistry and everything else.
So it's actually a chemical and hormonal.
Yes, yes. The hormones are actually the conduits. You see, in terms of Newtonian physics, this is not something that's readily accepted, and it's not readily. It's hard for people to buy into it. But in terms of quantum physics, what happens is these hormonal changes, these neurotransmitters that are created, that the epinephrine, the norepinephrine, gamma aminobutyric acid, the acetylcholine, the serotonin, dopamine, all of these undergo this concerto in the body in the 50 billion cells or so that we have. They're being regenerated, they're being recycled. But what is the actual medium? And that's light, and we're going to get into that in the second part of the show.
And are there any practices to increase the body's light, Bill?
Yes. Now, as we saw before, and I love that slide, because that slide really depicts what goes on around the energy field and inside the body. These practices, if we look at this, I mean, it really, every time I look at this, it's just, I see different things. I just saw something I didn't see before. On my left leg, you see a sort of expanded energy field, because the right one has injuries, so the left one has taken over most of the weight. See? So how do these exercises, and what type of exercises are utilized? Well, I love the ones that are time tested. Okay, now there are a whole bunch of different things that have come out in the last 20, 30, 40 years. But if you look at a practice like Qigong, like Tai Chi, like yoga, these are practices that have endured time. And, anything that's endured the test of time is obviously useful, because it's time tested, as we say. So now when you do these, you can change the energy fields.
Now this energy that you're talking about, you could actually see it on that one diagram of the healing and the wellness. But this is also part of the Eastern concept.
Yes.
Of Qigong and energy fields and your Qi, your energy.
This is a good concept to touch on, Gordon, because if you look at the monks, they had none of these high-tech electronic instruments.
But they knew.
Yet they intuitively knew. They knew that when the fertilization took place, that the newly developing embryo, the egg, would shift, and poles would be created, the polarities would be created, that energy fields would be created, they would penetrate, permeate, and as the baby developed, these chakras, or these energy centers, would open up, almost like dominoes, falling. You'd have first in 1 month cycles, it would be the the higher spiritual centers, then the third eye, then the throat, then the heart, then the solar plexus, then the adrenals, then it would go down to the base. Now, this would take place in 1 month increments. After you're born, they would develop from the base up in 7 or 8 year increments. And they would actually determine where the energies were at what point of time.
And is there a connection between these chakras and karma or karmic diseases? Or
now we're getting into some very heavy concepts here. Okay, what is karma? Now, let's look at karma in terms of, let's look at it in terms of modern physics, okay? We're going to refer back and forth. Newton had the laws of physics, the 3 laws. The last law, which I love, is for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So if I were to put this much pressure on your forearm would exert the same equal and opposite pressure back at me. If you're putting your hand on the chair is exerting the same pressure. So now, in light of that, karma is kind of like what sow you shall reap. All spiritualities have this in some shape, way, or form. The Hindus, or the Buddhists and the Taoists have their own version. The Judeo-Christian, Islamic form or version of it is heaven and earth, and you're getting rewarded, or you're going back in a different place, a better place. So now, in terms of karma, if you take karma and categorize it into the scientific model, karma is actually frozen light. Everything communicates with light. These light crystals become embedded or trapped or placed in areas of the energetic skeleton, of the energy, of the template of the body. Now, this also comes down to the sins of the fathers, the 3rd, 4th, 5th generation. These are imprinted in the genes, in the DNA, and they're passed on through the light of the DNA into the energy field. Now, let's give an example. If the person who committed atrocities, a dictator, sentenced people to death with his words, with his throat, chances are that entrapment would take place here, and 2, 3, 4 generations later, the person would be wide open. That energy field, like those breaks that we saw in that field, that would be open for a cancer or an arthritis or some sort of event coming into that area, equal and opposite, equal, the same magnitude, same organ. Let's take another example, the heart. If you have a hardened heart and you really, you were callous, you didn't take care of people, you weren't compassionate, you didn't give love, you didn't share love, this area, the thymus gland, the heart, the lungs, the breast would suffer. How would this translate into generations? Well, it could translate very easily into the next generation or second or third. It's not collective consciousness. This is a different concept where energies are actually embedded in the field and go directly into that organ system or that body part.
So there's a karmic disease?
Yes, okay. I wish people would take, I don't think the American Medical Association advocates taking a karmic history, all right? When you take a medical history, you take the social history, the drug history, the life history, but what about the karmic history? What did your grandparents do? Were they benevolent? Were they kind? Were they good? How about your father, your mother? What did you do? Okay, so we have this self-karma, and we have a generational karma, and then we have this earthly global consciousness karma, and they all kind of coalesce, and they all impact or imprint. So certain diseases which can't be explained, certain, for example, pains like in the neck, they do an MRI, they do a CT scan. Why did that person have that disorder? Well, maybe they were executed in a former life, okay? And their children carried the vibrational imprint in their pattern of development.
And not to get off that too far, but you're talking about vibrational medicine.
Yes.
And would this also be homeopathic?
Yes, homeopathic medicine, flower remedies, crystals, these all kind of fall into that vibrational frequency model, because if you look at the vibrational frequency model, it differs from the Newtonian model. The Newtonian model is like, I'll give you an example. They see a tumor. Okay, oh well, the tumor's there. Let's cut the tumor out, make sure we've excised the tumor totally. We got it, the growth is done, cut, burn, poison, you've done whatever you're gonna do. Okay, and in 2, 3 years, 4 years, it comes back. Why? What made that tumor grow, or that growth, or that abnormality take place in the first place? Because there was a vibrational imprint, abnormality, deficiency, or maybe what we call in Chinese medicine qi stagnation. There was a blockage in that area. Why does it take place in that area versus another area? What component of our lifestyle, or the lifestyle of people before us, or our ancestors, have made it so that that area has been weakened, so that the energies can enter, not only just environmental earth energies, but toxins from the environment, petrochemicals, heavy metals, the deleterious energies of other people, okay, the environmental chi, we call it.
We're going to wrap up this part 1 of Mind, Body, Spirit, and I hope you'll join us for Mind, Body, and Spirit Part 2 with my friend Reverend Dr. Bill Akpenar. Thank you for joining us.